Hey guys, I am your boring buddy. The boring adventure begins.
They say peasants are supposed to die quietly, in their own fields, under skies they recognize. Ours died screaming beneath a foreign horizon, between a cursed ocean and a desert older than memory. If you stay with me till the end, you'll learn why 20,000 of us abandoned the forests of America to kneel before a pharaoh we'd never heard of, why King Vlad's shadow stretched all the way to the pyramids, and why some nights those stones still taste like salt from a very specific shipwreck. We were not heroes. We were the people who dug graves, scraped blood from doorsteps, and prayed the soldiers would forget our names. For years, King Vlad's iron rule had turned our villages into open-air coffins. Taxes bled us, punishments broke us, and rumors finished whatever courage was left. They spoke of his new project, the Tower of 1,000 Cries, a fortress where entire families vanished without even a whisper returning. When the first secret maps appeared, passed from hand to shaking hand, maps of a land across the ocean where dead kings slept and no Vlad existed, we did not suddenly become brave. We were simply too tired to keep being afraid of the same man. 20,000 of us left in the dark. Farmers, blacksmiths, widows, thieves, children who thought this was an adventure instead of an evacuation. We boarded ships that smelled of old fish and new promises. Priests crossed themselves. Mothers kissed door frames one last time. Men stared straight ahead so no one would see their eyes shine. Nobody said it aloud, but we all believed the same thing. The sea could not possibly be worse than Vlad. The sea disagreed. On the third night, the water went unnaturally still. Even the usual creaks of the ship fell quiet, like the wood was holding its breath. The moon looked too close, swollen and watchful, turning the ocean into a flat sheet of pale metal. The first scream came from the front ship, a thin, tearing sound, as if someone was ripping fabric out of the sky. Then another, then many. By the time we reached the deck, the lead ship was listing, its mast bent at an angle no tree would ever choose. Something was wrapped around it. At first it looked like a giant serpent, but it wasn't right. It was made of shadow and foam, appearing only when the moonlight hit it just so. Its eyes were not eyes at all, but two holes where the world seemed to fall inward, drinking in the light. Every time lightning flashed, its body changed position, not like it was moving through space, but like it was skipping between moments. Men threw spears and prayers, both fell short. The creature did not roar, it exhaled, a long, heavy breath that smelled like wet grave soil and the inside of forgotten wells. Wherever that breath touched, people froze. Their eyes stayed open, but their thoughts left, like birds fleeing a burning tree. Later, when we dared to count, we found that about 1 in 5 of our people never made it past that night. Some swallowed by waves, some crushed in the chaos, some simply emptied. Those of us who lived discovered something strange about fear. It behaves like a muscle. It tears, it aches, and if you survive long enough, it grows stronger. Days bled into weeks. Food rotted faster than it should. Water turned sour. The ocean stopped pretending to be a road and revealed itself as a maze. Storms stalked us like predators. Once we sailed through rain that fell upward, droplets rising back into the sky, leaving our skin dry, but our minds soaked and cold. Another time, a flock of birds circled our ship for hours. Every bird was blind. Every bird was silent. They never landed. They just turned and turned above us, as if counting. Men whispered that we had already died and were merely being ferried to whatever waited after history. But work did not stop. Ropes needed pulling, sails needed mending, the dead needed wrapping. Hands blistered, backs screamed. On the worst days, when hunger roared louder than the wind, the captains ordered us to repeat a single line: "Hard work is the only God that answers." We hated them for it. Later, some of us would admit that mantra kept our minds from cracking. When terror lives in your bones, the only thing that keeps you standing is the habit of moving anyway. Our first leader died because he refused to lie down. His name was Merrick, a peasant elder who had organized the escape, the man who had stared down Vlad's soldiers and lied without trembling. Even when fever burned him from the inside, he insisted on tying knots, checking barrels, comforting children. "If I stop," he told me quietly, fingers trembling on a rope, "the fear will notice I'm alone with it." He died sitting up against a coil of hemp, eyes half closed, hands still moving in tiny, ghostly motions, as if finishing one last, invisible task. We wrapped him in linen and the last clean strip of sailcloth we had. When we slid his body into the sea, the water turned gentle for a heartbeat, as if in respect. Then, without a bubble, without a ripple, his shroud snapped downward, yanked from below, like something was snatching him into a deeper story. No one spoke after that. When land finally appeared, it did not look like salvation. Egypt rose out of the horizon like a verdict, a narrow ribbon of green clinging to the edge of an ocean of sand. Beyond it, in the heat haze, shapes clawed at the sky, too straight, too sharp, too arrogant to be hills. At first, we thought the pyramids were mountains. Then the sun moved and their edges did not soften. Mountains changed with the light. These things stayed hard and perfect, like someone had cut geometry out of the heavens and hammered it into stone. We had traded one impossible ruler for another. Vlad was a man who believed terror could hold a kingdom together. Egypt, we would soon learn, believed something even stranger. The closer we came to Egypt, the more the air felt like it already knew us. A warm, heavy wind slid across the deck, carrying a strange sweetness, like flowers blooming from graves. Even the children, hollow from starvation, fell silent and stared at the horizon as if someone was whispering their names from the sand. When the ships touched shore, relief flickered across our faces, then vanished. The ground beneath our feet was warm in a way that wasn't sun or desert. It pulsed, faint but unmistakable. Someone murmured, "The earth is breathing." Nobody laughed. We walked inland, fewer than 15,000 now, skin burnt, ribs sharp, hope thin. Egypt didn't greet us with guards or hospitality. It greeted us with a silence that felt like a trap being politely held open. Papyrus swayed without wind, the Nile reflected no ripples, and the pyramids loomed like colossal verdicts carved from the bones of time. We met our first Egyptian, but it wasn't human. Dusk settled like a curtain. I was tying a child's sandal when a shadow slid over us. Long, sharp, impossible. Not a man, not an animal. Something tall with a jackal's head and limbs bent just slightly wrong, like a memory retold inaccurately. Its eyes glowed, faint blue, empty of life but full of attention. Not hostile, not friendly, studying. Lightning flashed somewhere far behind us, and the creature shifted position without moving, an afterimage that disobeyed the rules of motion. Someone whispered, "Anubis." Another whispered, "Don't move." No one did. The creature stepped forward without disturbing sand. Its presence felt older than pyramids, older than gods. And then it raised a single finger and pointed toward the pyramid. One slow, deliberate gesture that struck harder than any command shouted by a king. We obeyed without discussion. Night fell, unnaturally fast. Stars appeared sharper than any sky we knew. Constellations twisted, unfamiliar, as if we had stepped under a different heaven entirely. Even seasoned sailors whispered that the sky looked rearranged. The pyramids glowed faintly, like embers beneath centuries of dust. Torches ignited along the pathways without hands to light them, their flames rising in perfect synchrony. The smell of burning herbs drifted across us, sharp, ancient, ceremonial. Then came the drums. Not human drums, something deeper. Each beat pushed through the sand, climbed our bones, and pressed against our hearts. A rhythm that felt like the desert itself was breathing, evaluating us, preparing us. The jackal creature vanished. In its place, humans emerged, priests in white linen, gold collars catching firelight. Their faces held a calm that felt unnatural, as if fear had been surgically removed from them. One priest stepped forward, touched a trembling woman's forehead, and whispered a phrase none of us should have understood, yet it entered our minds clearly. You arrived exactly when the desert foretold. Prophecies never comfort anyone, especially when you're inside one. The priests parted. A man walked through them wearing a golden serpent crown. His steps were slow, deliberate, as though time shifted to clear a path for him. His eyes were dark-lined, his skin dusted with crushed lapis, his presence heavy enough to bend the air. When he spoke, his voice was calm but terrifying, the kind of calm that belongs to someone who has never lost. People of the bleeding king from the far western forests, I am Pharaoh Merakte. You fled a tyrant, only to arrive at the kingdom that built tyrants. A shiver spread through our crowd like wind through tall grass. You will work, you will serve, and the desert will decide how many of you deserves its patience. Someone shouted in protest, someone else fell to their knees. The Pharaoh lifted his hand. Instantly, the drums stopped, as if the silence itself obeyed him. The pyramids are unfinished, and the gods grow hungry. The sand shivered beneath us, grains dancing in place. Above the pyramid, something massive shifted in the dark sky. Not cloud, not bird, not anything with a name. A shape, enormous, and watching. And for the first time since we left America, I realized the sea monster had not been the worst thing waiting for us. Something in Egypt had been expecting us, not as refugees, as offerings. The priests led us toward the pyramid's shadow, where the air thickened like warm honey. Every step felt heavier, as if unseen hands pressed gently against our backs. The torches lining the path flickered toward us instead of away, their flames bending unnaturally, as if inhaling our fear. None of us spoke. Voices felt dangerous here. At the entrance of the Great Pyramid, a narrow corridor yawned open, dark, swallowing, lined with symbols that shimmered faintly like fresh ink. The smell of ancient resin rolled out in a slow wave, thick and strange enough to make some people dizzy. Pharaoh Merakte walked ahead without looking back, his serpent crown gleaming. The priests followed silently, their footsteps too synchronized to be natural. We hesitated, but the drums, now quieter, deeper, pulsed again beneath the sand, urging us forward like a heartbeat telling blood where to go. Inside, the temperature dropped sharply. The walls were cold stone, carved with scenes of gods punishing kings, kings punishing peasants, and peasants kneeling before creatures that did not resemble anything human. These carvings moved subtly in the torchlight, not shifting, not breathing, but not entirely still either. A man beside me muttered, "They're watching." He wasn't wrong. As we moved deeper, a narrow chamber opened. Long stone platforms arranged like benches in a courtroom. At the far end sat a colossal statue, a humanoid shape with the head of a falcon, eyes set with black gems that swallowed the light instead of reflecting it. It felt alive in a way stone should never feel, like a judge awaiting a confession. Pharaoh raised his hand and spoke with quiet authority. "Stand before Horeket, the keeper of burdens. The gods must weigh your purpose before they permit you to work." Work. As if that word still meant farming or carrying bricks. We sensed something else waited beneath it, something ritualistic, dangerous. A priest stepped forward carrying a long bronze staff. At its tip gleamed a small orb of obsidian shaped almost like an eye. He held it over the first man in line. The orb brightened. The man convulsed violently, like the staff had pulled memories out of him by force. Images flashed across the obsidian surface, Vlad's soldiers burning a village, peasants dragged into iron cages, a child crying under a gallows. Then the orb went dark. The man collapsed. Not dead, worse, his eyes stared blankly, the way sailors' eyes had after the sea monster's breath. Whatever made him him was taken. Two priests dragged him away without ceremony. "Next," the Pharaoh commanded. A woman stepped forward, trembling. The staff lowered, the orb flickered. This time, the images inside the dark sphere were different. Her stealing bread for her starving brother, hiding from Vlad's patrols, burying her child after fever. The orb dimmed. Pharaoh nodded. "She may serve." Priests guided her aside, not gently, but not cruelly either, as if sorting livestock. One by one, we were dragged through the ritual. Some were judged worthy, many were emptied of themselves. We watched our former neighbors, friends, and family become hollow vessels right in front of us. And then, it was my turn. The staff hovered over me. The orb brightened instantly, too bright, as if it had been waiting. Not memories this time, something else. A shape, a silhouette, a tall figure with a cloak of shadows and a crown of iron thorns. Vlad. His image warped in the orb's darkness until even the priests leaned back. Pharaoh narrowed his eyes. "You carried his shadow across the sea," he said softly. "Why?" I opened my mouth, but another image erupted in the orb before I could speak. A map. Our entire journey, the serpent-crowned Pharaoh, the jackal-headed creature, the sea monster. And behind everything, towering above them all, a colossal silhouette, something neither human nor Egyptian, watching from behind the stars. The orb shattered. A sound like thousands of whispers escaping a throat burst through the chamber. The torches bent inward. The floor trembled. Pharaoh stumbled back, staring at me with a mixture of anger and something far more unsettling. Recognition. Then he spoke, voice low, deadly calm. "You were not supposed to survive the sea." The priests froze, some backed away, others raised their staves, uncertain. The statue of Horeket seemed to lean forward, though I didn't see it move. Pharaoh whispered, "You bring a curse older than Egypt." A deep rumble echoed through the chamber. Dust fell from the ceiling. The ground shifted beneath our feet, as if something vast was turning in its sleep beneath the pyramid. The priests panicked. Pharaoh did not. He leaned close and hissed, You will work, yes, but not as my servant." His eyes gleamed with an emotion I couldn't read. "You will work as the gods' warming." Behind me, people cried out as the stone floor cracked opened, revealing a descending passage, dark, steep, swallowing torchlight like a living throat. Pharaoh pointed toward the chasm. "Take him below." The torches flickered violently. A wind rose from the dark passage, cold, unnatural, carrying whispers that did not belong to any human mouth. Whatever waited below, it had been waiting a long time, and it knew my name. The priests seized my arms, but the fear in their grip betrayed them. Their hands trembled as if touching me broke a sacred rule. They dragged me toward the cracked opening in the stone floor, where a cold wind spiraled upward. Not air, not breath, but something older, something that felt like memory escaping the earth. The pit descended at an impossible angle, swallowing the torch's light. The moment my foot crossed the edge, all sound muffled, drums, shouts, even my own heartbeat. It felt like stepping from the world into its shadow. Pharaoh Merakte's voice drifted after me, soft but sharp. "The gods below know why you came. They know what follows you." His words didn't feel like a threat. They felt like a verdict. The priests pushed me into the darkness. The stone passage narrowed, forcing me to crouch. Symbols etched along the walls pulsed faintly, glowing like embers under skin. Every time I blinked, the carvings changed shape. Faces where animals should be, animals where stars should be, eyes where words should be. The stairs curved endlessly, then abruptly stopped. A wide chamber opened, not by torches, but by a pale, trembling luminescence leaking from the stone itself. I realized instantly the walls were not glowing, they were sweating light, as if something inside them pressed outward, desperate to escape. A voice echoed from the dark corner of the room, raspy, tired, and unmistakably human. "You're late." I froze. A figure stepped closer, limping out of the shadows. His clothes torn, his beard ragged, his eyes sunken, but I knew him. Marek, the elder who died on the ship, the man we wrapped in sailcloth, the body we gave to the sea. Yet here he stood, alive, or something close to it. He looked at me as though I had kept him waiting for years. "You saw me drown," I whispered. He nodded. "I did." How are you here?" Mark smiled, not kindly, not cruelly, but with the weary acceptance of someone who has run out of ways to explain the impossible. "The sea didn't take me, it delivered me." He stepped forward, and the dim light revealed his skin, etched with thin branching cracks like dried riverbeds. His veins glowed faintly, the same pale color leaking from the walls. My stomach tightened. "What did they do to you?" "Nothing," Marek said softly. "This place did it. The deeper you go, the more yourself you lose." From behind him, a sound rose, slow, dragging, like something enormous shifting its weight across stone. A long, hollow exhale filled the chamber, shaking light from the walls. Marek's eyes flicked toward the shadowed tunnel behind him. "It wakes when new arrivals come." My breath caught. "What wakes?" He lowered his voice to a trembling whisper. "The one the Egyptians fear, the one they feed, the one they believe built the pyramids before men ever learned to stack a stone." A chill crawled across my spine. "Marek, why am I here?" He stepped so close I could feel heat radiating from his cracked skin. "Because of the shadow attached to you. You think you fled Vlad's terror, but his mark runs deeper than you know. He follows you without stepping foot on the same land." His grip tightened on my shoulder, and something here wants that mark. The stone behind him groaned. Dust rained from the ceiling. The rumbling deepened, slow at first, then gathering force until the entire chamber vibrated like a throat preparing to speak. Marek's voice shook. "Listen to me carefully. No matter what you see next, do not answer it. It listens for names. Respond, and you belong to it." A deep resonance swelled through the chamber, low, eager, vibrating inside bone. The shadows behind him thickened, curling upward like smoke drawn backward into a lung. Then a voice rose from the darkness, layered, ancient, hungry. "Child of the Iron Crown, come closer." My knees nearly buckled. The voice wasn't heard, it was felt, sliding into the mind like cold water. Morek stepped back, fear tearing into his features. "It knows you. It shouldn't know you." The shadows writhed. A colossal shape began to form, outlined by the trembling light in the walls. Not human, not animal, something with too many angles and not enough mercy, its presence filling the chamber like an eclipse. The voice came again, deeper, closer. "Where is the king who marked you? Where is the one who drinks fear? Bring him to me." My blood turned to ice. The creature wanted Vlad, and somehow it believed I could deliver him. Morek grabbed my wrist, panic surging in his eyes. "You need to run, now, before it decides you're the next offering." "But there's nowhere to run," I whispered. He squeezed harder, voice breaking. "There is, but you won't like where it leads." The walls cracked, thin fractures spiderwebbing across the glowing stone. The creature behind him inhaled deeply, sucking light inward. The chamber darkened. Marek shoved me toward a narrow split in the stone. "Go, while it's still waking." As I stumbled forward, the creature's enormous silhouette shuddered, stretching. And just before I slipped into the crack in the wall, the voice thundered, "Return. You carry his shadow. You carry his name." The passage snapped shut behind me, but the echo followed, alive, crawling along the stone, tasting the air. "You cannot outrun what birthed you." The stone corridor spat me out into darkness, so complete it felt physical, like walking through ink. The air here was colder, drier, as if every breath had been drained from the place long before humans existed. Behind the sealed wall, the creature's voice still pulsed faintly, vibrating through stone like a heartbeat that belonged to something too large for the world. Marek's warning echoed in my skull. "Do not answer it. Names are chains." I kept moving. The passage narrowed until my shoulders scraped stone. Fingers of rock clawed down from the ceiling, forcing me to duck. Every few steps, faint symbols blinked briefly along the walls, appearing only long enough for me to realize they were not carved, but grown into the surface like veins of memory fossilized into stone. Then the ground dipped. A torchless chamber opened before me, lit only by a sickly green glow rising from the floor. It came from a pool, shallow, perfectly circular, its liquid shifting as if stirred by a heartbeat beneath it. At the pool's edge sat 3 figures bound in linen cloth, unmoving. For a moment, I thought they were statues. Then one lifted its head. Its eyes were empty holes, smooth and dark, not sockets, but complete hollowness. Its mouth opened slightly, and instead of breath, a low moan vibrated inside its chest, like someone humming from a distance neither near nor far. I stepped back, my heel scraping stone. All 3 figures turned toward the sound, simultaneously, mechanically, their heads twisted too far, joints cracking like snapping reeds. They rose slowly, their movements stiff, unwilling, as if pulled up by strings beneath the skin. One reached for me. Its fingers brushed my arm, cold, papery, wrong. As soon as it touched me, it froze, head tilting, listening. Then it whispered in a voice layered with others, "You are not emptied." Another leaned forward. "Why did the gods spare you?" A third stepped closer, its voice trembling like a cracked flute. "We were taken for less." They weren't attacking. They were studying, trying to understand why I wasn't hollow like them. The first figure pressed its forehead to mine, and my vision snapped white. Suddenly I saw flashes, not mine, not theirs, something deeper. A pit beneath the pyramid, stretching miles downward, an ancient throne carved from a single slab of black stone, a figure sitting upon it, shrouded, awake, waiting, chains of light descending from the ceiling and vanishing into its chest. And beneath that throne, bodies, thousands, stacked like offerings. The vision ended with a sound, one I had only heard twice before. Vlad's voice, not speaking, breathing. The hollow figures recoiled violently from me, as if burned. "The shadow in you is not mortal. It stains the air. It calls to the hunger below." They backed away until they stood at the pool's edge. The pool pulsed brighter. One whispered, "Forgive us," and all three stepped backward into the glowing liquid. The moment they touched it, the pool erupted, steam rising violently, their bodies dissolving into white vapors that twisted upward and vanished into the cracks in the ceiling. The chamber fell silent. My heart hammered. Whatever guided those creatures did not want them touching me. Whatever guided them recognized something inside me. I turned toward the exit, but a whisper drifted from behind. "You should not have let them smell you." I spun. A woman leaned against the far wall, alive, human-looking, dressed in ragged travel clothes that did not match Egyptian fabric. Her skin was pale, stiff with dust from the passage, and her eyes, deep green, cut through the darkness like two lanterns. She had been hiding, watching. "Who are you?" I whispered. She smirked. "Someone who arrived before you. Someone who lasted longer." I stepped closer. "From our ships?" "No," she said. "From another, years ago." My breath caught. Were there others before us? Her expression flickered. Fear, anger, resignation all tangled. "Thousands," she whispered, "and they all thought Egypt would save them." She gestured toward the strange liquid pooling on the floor. "This place doesn't save anyone. It chooses, and it's been choosing for far longer than Pharaoh's bloodline." My mind raced. Why didn't it choose you? She stepped forward until her breath brushed my cheek. "Because I'm not here to be chosen. I'm here to steal something." She pointed at my chest. "And now, I need you." A loud crack sliced through the chamber. The walls rippled. The woman grabbed my wrist. "No time. If the creature below felt what those hollow ones felt, it already knows where you are." Stone behind us split open, revealing a narrow, spiraling ramp leading even deeper underground, lit by faint golden threads snaking along the walls like illuminated nerves. She pulled me forward. "Move, before the god beneath remembers what it made the pyramids for." The ramp sealed shut behind us, and for the first time since entering Egypt, I felt something more dangerous than fear. Purpose. But it wasn't mine. It belonged to whatever had marked me long before this journey began. The spiraling ramp tightened as we descended, the air growing warmer, sharper, tasting faintly metallic, like breathing inside a weapon. The walls glowed with thin, golden veins pulsing steadily, each beat too slow to be a heartbeat and too measured to be anything natural. The woman moved fast but silent, pulling me through the narrowing turns with the confidence of someone who had survived this maze before. I finally asked, "What exactly are you stealing?" She didn't look back. "The only thing that can kill what's beneath the pyramid." My pulse spiked. I thought it was a god. It is, but even gods are built on rules. We reached a sudden flat landing, an enormous circular chamber. The ceiling rose higher than any place underground should rise, vanishing into a darkness that shimmered faintly, as if something enormous breathed up there. A stone platform dominated the center, smooth, featureless, except for a single object hovering above it. A black cube rotating slowly in the air, dripping trails of dark dust that evaporated before touching the ground. It pulsed once, twice, each pulse sending a vibration through the chamber strong enough to make my teeth ache. I whispered, What is that?" She stepped closer, her voice low. "The heart of silence. It was taken from the creature below to bind it. Without this, it wakes fully." I swallowed. "So why steal it?" She turned sharply, eyes blazing. "Because it's waking anyway. Do you think the Pharaoh summons thousands of outsiders for labor? No, he feeds the thing, keeps it half alive, half starved so it never grows strong enough to break free." She pointed at me. "And now it wants you." The cube pulsed violently at those words, almost as if acknowledging her. I stepped back instinctively. It followed my movement, rotating slightly, turning its dark face toward me, like a predator adjusting its gaze. She whispered, "It recognizes the shadow in you." I clenched my fists. "What exactly does that mean?" She hesitated, first sign she feared the answer. "Vlad, your king, did not gain his power alone. His cruelty isn't just human. Something touched him, something ancient. That mark is on you because you lived under him long enough." A coldness spread through my chest. I wasn't cursed because of what I'd done. I was cursed because of where I was born. The woman reached toward the floating cube. "We take this, we weaken the creature, then we run before Pharaoh knows we were here." When her fingers neared the cube, the chamber trembled. Not a quake, a recoil, as if the pyramid itself was trying to stop her. The golden veins in the walls brightened, then dimmed, like a giant blinking its eyes open and shut. A deep groan rolled through the stone, vibrating up through our feet. She whispered, "It senses us." The cube's surface warped, its perfect edges bending, liquefying, reshaping into something that resembled a void with intent. A sound drifted from it, soft at first, then rising. Whispers, thousands of voices overlapping, crying, begging, pleading. Voices of the hollow ones, voices of the drowned, voices of the sacrificed. I covered my ears. It didn't help. The sound crawled through my skull from the inside. The woman gritted her teeth. "Ignore it. It's not speaking to you. It's trying to claim you." The ground split slightly around the platform, cracks spreading like spider legs. A massive rumble shook dust from the ceiling. The woman lunged forward and grabbed the cube. A scream blasted through the chamber, not from her, not from me, but from beneath us, as if the pyramid itself had veins that were tearing. The cube shrank instantly, compressing into her palm like a panicked animal. The golden veins in the walls blackened. The air went ice cold. Then, the floor opened. A chasm tore across the chamber, swallowing the platform, stretching toward us with terrifying certainty. The woman shoved the cube into a pouch at her belt and grabbed my arm. "Run!" We sprinted toward the far exit, a narrow slit in the wall that couldn't have been noticed earlier. The stone behind us collapsed in slabs, dust erupted into the air. The hollowed-out roar of the creature below echoed upward, closer now, angrier. The ground tilted as if the entire pyramid leaned to one side. We reached the slit and squeezed through, stones scraping skin, ripping cloth. The tunnel behind was narrow, jagged, twisting upward sharply. Behind us, a voice rose, not loud, but everywhere. "You steal from what was here before time." My legs almost buckled. The woman hissed, "Don't listen. Don't accept. Keep moving." The voice deepened. "You carry his mark. You belong below." The tunnel shook violently. A gust of hot air blasted upward behind us, carrying the scent of ancient decay and burning stone. We climbed faster. Suddenly, the woman stopped dead. The tunnel forked, left and right, but both paths pulsated, growing and shrinking like throats preparing to inhale. She cursed under her breath. "It's manipulating the passages. It doesn't want us reaching the surface." The creature's whispers slithered around us. "Choose. Only one path does not end in your unmaking." I felt the truth buried in the words. Both paths were deadly, but one of them was meant for me. The woman looked at me with fierce urgency. "You decide. It's not talking to me, only to you." The walls rippled, waiting. The ground quivered with impatience. Behind us, the monster's breath grew hotter. I stepped forward, heart pounding, and the spiraling ramp tightened as we descended, the air growing warmer, sharper, tasting faintly metallic, like breathing inside a weapon. The walls glowed with thin golden veins pulsing steadily, each beat too slow to be a heartbeat and too measured to be anything natural. The woman moved fast but silent, pulling me through the narrowing turns with the confidence of someone who had survived this maze before. I finally asked, "What exactly are you stealing?" She didn't look back. "The only thing that can kill what's beneath the pyramid." My pulse spiked. "I thought it was a god." "It is," she said, "but even gods are built on rules." We reached a sudden flat landing, an enormous circular chamber. The ceiling rose higher than any place underground should rise, vanishing into a darkness that shimmered faintly, as if something enormous breathed up there. A stone platform dominated the center, smooth, featureless, except for a single object hovering above it. A black cube, rotating slowly in the air, dripping trails of dark dust that evaporated before touching the ground. It pulsed once, twice, each pulse sending a vibration through the chamber strong enough to make my teeth ache. I whispered, What is that?" She stepped closer, her voice low. "The heart of silence. It was taken from the creature below to bind it. Without this, it wakes fully." I swallowed. "So why steal it?" She turned sharply, eyes blazing. "Because it's waking anyway. Do you think the Pharaoh summons thousands of outsiders for labor? No, he feeds the thing, keeps it half alive, half starved, so it never grows strong enough to break free." She pointed at me. "And now, it wants you." The cube pulsed violently at those words, almost as if acknowledging her. I stepped back instinctively. It followed my movement, rotating slightly, turning its dark face toward me like a predator adjusting its gaze. She whispered, "It recognizes the shadow in you." I clenched my fists. "What exactly does that mean?" She hesitated. First sign she feared the answer. "Vlad, your king, did not gain his power alone. His cruelty isn't just human. Something touched him, something ancient. That mark is on you because you lived under him long enough. A coldness spread through my chest. I wasn't cursed because of what I'd done. I was cursed because of where I was born. The woman reached toward the floating cube. We take this, we weaken the creature. Then we run before Pharaoh knows we were here. When her fingers neared the cube, the chamber trembled. Not a quake, a recoil, as if the pyramid itself was trying to stop her. The golden veins in the walls brightened, then dimmed, like a giant blinking its eyes open and shut. A deep groan rolled through the stone, vibrating up through our feet. She whispered, "It senses us." The cube's surface warped, its perfect edges bending, liquefying, reshaping into something that resembled a void with intent. A sound drifted from it, soft at first, then rising. Whispers, thousands of voices overlapping, crying, begging, pleading, voices of the hollow ones, voices of the drowned, voices of the sacrificed. I covered my ears. It didn't help. The sound crawled through my skull from me inside. The woman gritted her teeth. Ignore it. It's not speaking to you. It's trying to claim you. The ground split slightly around the platform, cracks spreading like spider legs. A massive rumble shook dust from the ceiling. The woman lunged forward and grabbed the cube. A scream blasted through the chamber, not from her, not from me, but beneath us, as if the pyramid itself had veins that were tearing. The cube shrank instantly, compressing into her palm like a panicked animal. The golden veins in the walls blackened. The air went ice cold. And then, the floor opened. A chasm tore across the chamber, swallowing the platform, stretching towards us with terrifying certainty. The woman shoved the cube into a pouch at her belt and grabbed my arm. "Run!" We sprinted toward the far exit, a narrow slit in the wall that couldn't have been noticed earlier. The stone behind us collapsed in slabs. Dust erupted into the air. The hollowed-out roar of the creature below echoed upward, closer now, angrier. The ground tilted as if the entire pyramid leaned to one side. We reached the slit and squeezed through, stone scraping skin, ripping cloth. The tunnel beyond was narrow, jagged, twisting upward sharply. Behind us, a voice rose, not loud, but everywhere. "You steal from what was here before time." My legs almost buckled. The woman hissed, "Don't listen, don't accept, keep moving." The voice deepened, "You carry his mark, you belong below." The tunnel shook violently, a gust of hot air blasted upward from behind, carrying the scent of ancient decay and burning stone. We climbed faster. Suddenly, the woman stopped dead. The tunnel forked, left and right, but both paths pulsated, growing and shrinking like throats preparing to inhale. She cursed under her breath. "It's manipulating the passages. It doesn't want us reaching the surface." The creature's whisper slithered around us. "Choose. Only one path doesn't end in your unmaking." I felt the truth buried in the words. Both paths were deadly, but one of them was meant for me. The woman looked at me with fierce urgency. "You decide. It's not talking to me, only to you." The walls rippled, waiting. The ground quivered with impatience. Behind us, the creature's breath grew hotter. I stepped forward, heart pounding, and both tunnels pulsed like living arteries, expanding and shrinking in slow, hungry breaths. The walls vibrated with a low hum, almost a purr, waiting for me to choose which path would claim me. The woman whispered sharply, "Pick one, now. It's listening." Behind us, the creature exhaled again, hot, ancient, deliberate. The blast of air hit my back like a hand urging me into the darkness. I closed my eyes. For a split second, neither tunnel looked like stone. Both shimmered with ghostly shapes, shadows of people walking, falling, dying. But one tunnel had me in it, A flicker, my silhouette stumbling through, illuminated by faint gold veins pulsing beneath the rock like dying constellations. The other tunnels showed nothing except darkness folding inward, a path that chose no one because no one survived it. I pointed left. This way. The woman didn't question. She grabbed my wrist and yanked me forward just as the right tunnel slammed shut behind us, like a giant jaw snapping closed. The left tunnel groaned, stones shifting, rearranging as we ran. The walls tightened, then widened suddenly, as if the pyramid was trying to confuse our bodies as much as our minds. A deep rumble surged from below. It was rising. The ground trembled so violently the dust rained from the ceiling in thick curtains. The tunnel bent sharply upward, and as we climbed, a strange light flickered ahead of us, cold, rhythmic, almost breathing. We reached a ledge overlooking an enormous hollow. In the center, suspended in golden chains of golden light, was something I could barely comprehend. A figure, taller than any man, wrapped in layers of stone and darkness, hung bound in midair. Its face was covered, its limbs ensnared, but its presence pressed against my mind with the weight of a collapsing world. The woman froze beside me. "That's the sleeper," she whispered. "The original builder. The one the Egyptians call a god, but fear like a curse." I stared, unable to breathe. The figure twisted slightly, as if aware of our presence even through its confinement. The golden chains shuddered. Then a crack split one. A single sound exploded through the cavern, the sound of something ancient waking after being denied motion for centuries. The woman grabbed my arm hard enough to bruise. "We need to keep moving. If it breaks free..." Her words cut off. A flash of movement rippled through the cavern below. Not the sleeper, something smaller, faster. It crawled along the walls, its limbs bending in impossible angles, its body stretching unnaturally, like a shadow peeling itself from a dying flame. Its eyes were two empty circles. Another appeared, then another. Dozens, all climbing towards us. The hollow ones, but stripped even further from humanity. Whatever they had become in the liquid pool was only the first stage. These were something else entirely, creatures shaped from fear, hunger, and obedience. The woman whispered, "Run, now." We sprinted along the ledge as the swarm surged upward, scraping stone with their claws. The tunnel narrowed again, spiraling into a steep ascent. Every few steps, one of the creatures screeched, a sharp, metallic wail that stabbed the air. One leapt, catching my ankle. Its grip was cold, sticky, desperate. I kicked wildly, the impact cracking its wrist. The creature didn't scream. It simply held tighter. Its empty eyes reflected my face like a distorted mirror. The woman spun back, slammed a knife into its throat, except there was no throat. The blade struck something inside it that glowed briefly, then burst into ash. We kept running. Ahead, the tunnel bent sharply, then flattened out, and finally opened into a massive chamber lit by torchlight. Human torchlight. Dozens of Egyptians stood waiting, priests, soldiers, executioners, eyes widened in shock at seeing us emerge from the forbidden depths. Behind us, the creatures shrieked. Before the priests could act, the woman yelled, "Move!" and shoved into their ranks, scattering them. I followed, ripping free from grasping hands and pushing into a corridor that led upward towards faint moonlight. But a voice rolled through the pyramid, low, furious, undeniable. "You cannot leave with what was mine." The walls quaked, sand poured from the ceiling, torches bent backward, flames snapping toward the tunnel we'd escaped. The woman grabbed the cube at her belt and hissed, "It's locked onto you. It can sense the mark. I need you to trust me completely." I nodded breathlessly. "What do you need me to do?" She looked straight into my eyes. "Let it chase you." Before I could react, she shoved me into a narrow side passage alone. The creature shrieked behind me. The sleeper roared from below. Pharaoh's soldiers shouted from above. Every force in Egypt was converging on one target: me. The passage sloped upward sharply, leading toward a thin slice of light, a crack in the outer stone. The moonlight shimmered, calling, promising air, sky, escape. But as I ran, the voice thundered again, closer. You carry the shadow I desire. Return to me. The stone beneath my feet rippled like water. The crack in the pyramid widened, moonlight flooding in. Freedom. But in that same breath, a massive silhouette rose from behind me, scraping against stone, bending the passage wider, a monstrous shape forcing itself upward. I dove toward the opening just as the creature's breath hit my back like a collapsing desert. I burst through the crack and tumbled onto the cold sand outside. And I froze, because standing at the base of the pyramid was Pharaoh Merakte, and behind him, bound soldiers, and between them, tied and beaten, Morek, alive, again, for the second time. His eyes lifted to mine, glowing faintly, and he whispered one word: run. Then the sand behind me exploded. The explosion of sand threw me forward, scraping my palms across the gritty ground. A roar, deep, ancient, echoing with 1,000 swallowed voices, ripped out of the pyramid behind me. The very air buckled. Pharaoh Merakte didn't flinch. He stood perfectly still, serpent crown glinting beneath the moon, as if he had been waiting for this exact moment. Merek strained against his bindings, veins glowing faintly beneath his cracked skin. Not fear, warning. I scrambled to my feet. The creature's shadow oozed from the crack in the pyramid wall like a nightmare forcing itself into the world. A massive claw, no shape fully human, animal, god, or demon, scraped the sand, dragging deep gouges through it. Pharaoh raised one hand. Hold him, he ordered calmly. His soldiers moved instantly. The woman who had guided me below was nowhere in sight. The cube, the heart of silence, was still pulsing in her pouch, stolen but not yet used. The creature behind me exhaled. The ground shivered. The moon flickered. Merek shouted, "Not here! It wants the mark! Not you, the mark!" Pharaoh snapped, "Silence him." A soldier struck Merek across the mouth. His glowing blood dripped into the sand, each drop sizzling as if burning through centuries. Pharaoh walked toward me with slow, deliberate steps. "You climbed deeper than any outsider, and survived." His eyes studied me like a scholar studying an omen. "Do you know why?" I backed away. "I don't belong to that thing." He smiled, cold and thin. "No, but it believes you do." Behind me the creature roared again, angrier this time, as if realizing the open air did not belong to it. Pharaoh raised one hand. "Hold him," he snapped calmly. Before the soldiers could move, Merek lunged, chains snapping as if made of paper. Something inside him shifted, his cracked skin brightening, glowing, then burning. He wasn't human anymore. He collided with the soldiers, tossing them aside like broken tools. He locked eyes with me, eyes that flickered with pain, memory, and something alien twisting beneath both. "Run," he rasped. "It's not after the king, it's after what the king stole." Pharaoh shouted, "Stop him, he's breaking his binding." But Merek was already moving, towards Pharaoh. The wraith flickered violently, its form collapsing inward. The creature behind me screeched, its voice a storm of agony, fury, and hunger. The desert wind howled. Merek reached Pharaoh, grabbed him by the throat, lifting him from the ground like a rag doll. Pharaoh choked, struggling. "Merrick, don't." But Merrick wasn't listening to Pharaoh. He was listening to something deeper, something calling him from beneath the pyramid. Pharaoh raised a hidden blade and stabbed Merrick's chest. It did nothing. Merrick leaned close, his glowing mouth near Pharaoh's ear. Then he whispered something so soft I barely heard it. "You kept feeding it, but it always wanted you." Merrick hurled Pharaoh towards the opening in the pyramid. The moment Pharaoh's body hit the sand near the crack, the creature surged forward with a roar that shattered the night. A colossal limb shot out, grabbed Pharaoh, and dragged him inside with brutal finality. His scream cut off mid-breath. Silence. Then, a new voice echoed from inside the pyramid. Not Pharaoh's, not Merrick's, not the creature's. A voice layered, deep, ancient. "The seal is broken." Merrick turned toward me, his glowing cracks spreading across his skin like lightning. "You need to leave the valley. When it rises fully, Egypt won't survive. None of us will." "But what about you?" I asked. He smiled, slow, sad, inhuman. "I was never leaving." The ground beneath us opened again. The wraith dissolved into a storm of sand. The creature roared with newborn freedom. And the pyramid, the entire pyramid, began to move. The ground convulsed under my feet, sand rolling like a living ocean. The Great Pyramid, once silent stone, shifted with a groaning roar that scraped the sky. Massive blocks slid out of alignment, revealing cracks that pulsed with blinding gold, as if something inside was pushing upward with impossible strength. Merrick staggered, glowing veins tearing wider across his body. "It's rising. You need to run, now." A thunderous boom split the night. The top third of the Great Pyramid cracked open like an egg. A column of molten light shot upward, spiraling into the sky, turning the moon blood red. Behind me, the sand wraith reformed briefly, its voice trembling. "The builder wakes. The seal is lost." Then it evaporated into a swirling cloud. The ground erupted. I sprinted as the desert split behind me, fissures racing across the sand like hungry lightning. The woman, the thief with the heart of silence, appeared from behind a dune, gripping her pouch tightly. "You made it," she breathed. Before I could speak, the pyramid roared. Not an echo, a voice. A voice so massive it vibrated inside bone, rattling thought itself. "The age of stone returns. The age of flesh ends." The woman's eyes widened. "It's speaking. That means it's almost free." The pyramid's outer layers peeled away like shedding scales. Something enormous moved beneath the collapsing architecture, an outline so massive it made the dunes tremble like frightened animals. Merrick stumbled towards us, glowing cracks reaching his neck. "It remembers Vlad. It remembers the mark. It thinks you are the bridge." My stomach clenched. "Bridge to what?" "To the world above," Merrick whispered. "It cannot rise fully without something human, something marked." The woman grabbed my shoulder. "Listen to me. This thing is older than Egypt. The pyramids weren't tombs. They were locks." Sand whipped around us as the creature's form pushed higher, its silhouette breaking through stone, an enormous torso made of shifting black rock, arms shaped from shadows and bone, a head crowned with jagged spires like a broken crown of obsidian. Its eyes were hollow stars, not glowing, absorbing light. The woman yelled over the storm. The heart of silence can suppress it, but only if used before it fully emerges. She pulled out the cube. It beat in her palm like a second heart, heavy, alive, weeding. Merrick shook his head violently. No. If she activates it now, it'll kill her. The cube drains what it touches. It doesn't bind alone, it feeds. The cube pulsed brighter as if hearing its name. The woman raised it toward the creature. I wasn't planning to survive. I grabbed her wrist. Use me instead. She stared, shocked. Merrick stepped between us, voice cracking. No, you don't understand. It needs what's inside you. If you link with the cube, it won't be draining the monster, it'll be draining you, and that could give it exactly what it wants. Lightning erupted across the sky in jagged gold veins. The creature rose higher, its massive form towering over the ruins, shoulders emerging, then arms stretching outward, each movement collapsing ancient stone. Child of the shadow, come to me. The voice hit me like a hammer. My knees buckled. Sand lifted into the air around me, swirling into patterns that resembled faces, hundreds, crying, begging, reaching. The woman gripped my arm hard enough to bruise. It's calling you because it wants Vlad's mark. It wants the taste of that power. Merrick collapsed to one knee, glowing fissures breaking wider. Don't go near it. If you do, the mark will merge with the sleeper, and once that happens, nothing on earth will stop it. The creature stepped into the open desert, its full height revealed. A giant, a walking mountain forged from ancient grief. Every footstep sent shockwaves rippling through the sand. The woman thrust the cube into my hands. You choose, she said. Either run and let it consume the world, or use the heart and risk becoming the seal yourself. The cube pulsed brighter, as if hearing its name. The monster roared so loud the stars flickered. Merrick screamed, "Don't let it touch you." I looked at the approaching titan, its shadow swallowing dunes, its voice drilling into my skull like prophecy. The mark returns to its master. The air thinned, my vision warped, the cube heated in my palm like molten metal. Alas,
Seconds.
one wrong choice meant the end of everything. The woman shouted, "What do you choose?" The creature lunged, and I pressed the cube against my chest. And the world exploded into white. Falling didn't feel like falling. It felt like being unstitched. Every memory, every fear, every tired hope I'd ever carried ripped loose and spun around me like torn pages in a storm. Faces flashed by, Merrick clutching rope on the ship, children pressed together in the hold, Vlad's cold eyes under a crown that never sat quite right on his head. Then, everything stopped. No impact, no ground. I was standing. The world around me was a vast plain of black glass, stretching forever in every direction. Above, there was no sky, only a ceiling of slow-turning constellations that were not stars, but open eyes, staring down with detached interest. In front of me stood a throne. It wasn't made of stone or gold. It was built from stacked silhouettes, people frozen mid-scream, mid-kneel, mid-bow, their forms turned solid, infused together into one towering seat. On that throne sat a figure, not the sleeper's giant shape, something smaller, human-sized, cloaked in a darkness that flowed, not hung. When it raised its head, I saw no face, only a hollow space filled with moving shapes, cities burning, armies kneeling, peasants digging. Power replaying itself. A voice spoke, but the figure's shadow mouth never moved. You finally came inside. My throat felt dry. Are you the sleeper? I am what you call it. I am what builds. I am what binds. I am what kings borrow. The mark on my soul pulsed. The cube in my chest answered it with a dull ache. Images flickered across the glass beneath my feet. Ancient deserts, oceans, forests, empires rising and crumbling. You touched Vlad. You gave him this shadow. Why? The figure leaned forward. I did not give. He reached. Some mortals are drawn to gravity, some to fire. Your king was drawn to hunger. He asked to never feel small again, and in that asking, he opened himself. The throne's fused silhouettes shuddered faintly, as if remembering. And you? It asked. You lived under him long enough for the echo to stain you. That is why I smell myself on your bones. A cold fury flickered under my fear. So all this, Vlad's terror, our escape, Egypt, the pyramids, this monster, you, was this all one long chain? Not planned, merely inevitable. Hunger recognizes hunger. Vlad dug his teeth into the world. Pharaoh dug tunnels into the dark. Two predators sniffing the same vein. I clenched my fists. Those people didn't leave America for prophecy. They left because they were tired of pain. They were just trying to stay alive. That is why I watched them. Survival is the only honest language. For a moment, the constellations of eyes dimmed, as if in contemplation. You interest me, it continued. Most peasants break. Some become fuel. A rare few become tools. You did something stranger. You chose to become a lock. The cube in my chest hummed with each word. You can't stay inside me without changing. You will either dissolve like all the others, or you will stand up. I stared at the throne made of frozen human shapes. What happens if I stand up? The figure tilted its head. Then we share the chair. A wave of revulsion rolled through me. I saw Vlad on a battlefield, laughing while smoke smeared the sky. I saw Pharaoh draining caravans into the depths. I saw priests raising temples from bones. Different faces, same throne. I forced the images away. I don't want your power. Want is irrelevant. You are already altered. You held the heart. You turned my chains against me. You tasted what it means to move more than your own life. The black glass beneath us rippled, showing another scene. The desert above, the broken pyramid, the woman shielding her eyes, Merrick, glowing cracks spreading fast. The sleeper's outer body, its giant form, was half bound, half free, wrapped in the golden chains I had cast, each link strained, burning. They cannot hold me long without you, the voice went on. Your will sits in the heart of my prison now. If you break, I rise. If you surrender, I rule through you. If you rage, I feed on it. It leaned forward, the darkness of its hood deepening. So choose. My chest burned. I felt my own heartbeat stutter, caught between the cube and something older. What if I choose to end it? I asked quietly. You, Vlad's echo, this whole chain. The sleeper regarded me for a long, heavy moment. Endings cost. Are you prepared to pay with more than your breath? The throne creaked as the frozen silhouettes shifted slightly, as though straining to listen. What kind of cost? I whispered. Memory, history. You can cut the mark out of the world if you wish. Remove my whisper from human ears. No more Vlad, no more pharaohs reaching below, no more kings drinking from this well. And the price? You, the sleeper answered. You become what they would have been, not in cruelty, in function. You stand watch where I lay. You become the weight that stops men from opening doors they are not meant to see. A cold understanding slid into place. I become the lock, I said. And the warning, it replied. Peasants will still suffer, men will still harm, but the kind of hunger that bends empires into horrors, that will have to learn to live without me. The eyes above us dimmed, as if waiting for the verdict. I thought of the ship, the sea monster's breath, children counting stars through broken planks, Merrick tying ropes with trembling hands so fear didn't see him stop. Hard work is the only God that answers. Not a prayer to hunger, a promise to endure. Why me? I asked softly. Why not Merrick, or the woman, or any of the thousands you've already touched? Because you are enough of a coward to fear this, and enough of a fool to do it anyway. The truly power-hungry would twist it. The truly broken would shatter. You, it paused, you fix what you can reach, and curse what you cannot. That is the right kind of small. I almost laughed. It sounded too much like Merrick. The cube throbbed inside me, each pulse heavier, slower. I could feel myself slipping, back toward the body half buried in sand, back toward the chains, back toward the roar. If I refuse, asked I, then I break free, the sleeper said simply. Vlad's shadow finds a new host. Pharaoh's line continues the feeding. Your people, your children's children, will kneel under crowns that never feel satisfied. And someday, another version of you will stand here, making the same decision with more bodies behind him. The plane of black glass reflected my face. Tired, afraid, very, very small. But not empty. I took a breath that wasn't really a breath. Fine, I said. You go to sleep. I'll stand guard. The throne shuddered. The silhouettes softened, their stone skin turning to dust. One by one, the frozen figures that formed the seat crumpled, drifting as faint lights, rising toward the watching constellations. The cloaked figure stood. For the first time, I saw its true height. It wasn't a titan, it was the size of any man who had ever thought himself larger than the world. It turned its hood toward me. You will hate this. You will never be thanked. No one will know your name. I met the hollow space where its face should have been. They never knew ours anyway. A strange sound echoed through the void, not a roar, not a scream, almost approval. The figure dissolved, its shadow unraveling into thin threads of darkness that drifted upward and vanished. The constellations of eyes blinked out, one by one. The plane cracked beneath my feet. The cube in my chest grew heavier, then lighter, then still. And somewhere far above, in the real desert, a giant of stone and shadow, began to kneel. Above the desert, the Titan knelt. What had moments ago been a rising mountain of shadow and stone now sank slowly back toward the earth, dragged by chains of molten gold that burst from its chest, its throat, its eyes. Each link tightened with a sound like thunder being hammered into shape. From the dunes, the woman watched, one arm shielding her face from the blinding light. "That's not possible," she whispered. Beside her, Marek swayed, his glowing cracks fading to a faint ember. He chose. Of course he did. Stupid boy. The sleeper's colossal knees hit the sand with a quake that sent waves rippling across the dunes. The ruined layers of the pyramid folded inward, blocks rolling, sliding, then rising again, not as chaos this time, but with brutal precision, as if guided by a single will. The creature's torso sank. Its arms, once raised to crush, folded across its chest. Its head bowed. The golden chains plunged into the desert, anchoring it in place. Stone flowed over shadow like cooling lava, sealing, swallowing, shaping. The woman blinked against the afterimage burned into her sight. "Is it dying?" she asked. Marek shook his head. "No. Worse. It's agreeing." The last of the Titan disappeared beneath a smooth new surface of stone. Where the broken pyramid had stood now rose a different structure, still triangular, still immense, that etched with new channels of shimmering gold that traced patterns no priest had ever carved. The heart of silence had redrawn the prison. The ground shuddered once more, then stilled. Silence. Real silence. No hidden breathing, no low, hungry vibration licking at the edges of thought. For the first time in centuries, the desert sounded like only sand and wind. Marek sank to his knees. The light in his veins dimmed, no longer driven by a raging god's attention, only by whatever he had left of himself. The woman knelt in front of him, gripping his shoulders. Where is he? Where did it take him? Marek's eyes glistened, but they were finally human again. No glow, no cracks, just exhaustion and grief. He went where it was, and then he made it empty. Her breath hitched. That thing. It's really gone? Marek shook his head slowly. Sleeping. Deeper. But this time the hunger isn't steering the dream. He is. He lifted a hand with effort and pointed toward the reformed pyramid. Feel it. She drew a breath, bracing for the familiar cold pressure that had lived in this place since she'd first arrived. Nothing. No pull. No whisper. No promise of power. Only weight. Calm. Solid. Immovable weight. Like a door that had finally decided to stay shut. The woman swallowed hard. So that's it. He stays down there. Forever. That's the job he chose, Marek said. Someone has to sit on the edge and tell monsters no. He laughed weakly. He was always good at saying no to the wrong people. Maybe now he finally found the right one. A low rumble drifted from the horizon. The remaining ships in the distant harbor creaked against the tide, their tattered banners snapping in the wind. Peasants gathered on the dunes, staring at the remade pyramid with hollow awe. Some cried, some prayed. None understood exactly what had just been prevented, which was the point. Marek's shoulders slumped. What happens now? The woman asked. Marek looked at his hands, finally still. Now? Now Egypt loses its favorite ghost story. He nodded toward the priests and guards clustered in the distance. Already their formation was broken. Some threw down their weapons, others ran. A few screamed about ovens and broken covenants. Their God doesn't answer anymore, Mark said softly. They'll still build, still rule, still make mistakes, but there won't be a voice in the dark promising shortcuts to fear. The woman turned back to the pyramid. Will he ever come out? She asked. Mark considered. No, he said at last. If he comes out, it means the lock failed, and he won't let that happen. He winced as a final line of light cracked across his chest, then faded. And you? She asked. He smiled faintly. I was borrowed, half dead, half bound, part message, part warning. Now that the deal's changed, he looked at his reflection in a shard of broken stone. For the first time, there was nothing glowing beneath his skin. I think I get to be just dead. Tears formed in the woman's eyes. That's not funny. Not trying to be. But I'd rather sleep in real soil than in something's stomach. He pushed himself unsteadily to his feet and glanced at the people on the dunes. Take them away from here, he told her. Lead them somewhere the ground doesn't remember screaming. Where? Egypt is broken. America is half haunted by what Vlad did. Where do they go? Morik looked toward the river, where the faint green strip of life clung stubbornly to the edges of the desert. Somewhere they can work, without a king breathing down their necks. Somewhere fear isn't the only God that answers. He touched her forearm, eyes steady. You've been stealing from the dark for years. Good. Steal these people from it too. She huffed a shaky breath. I never wanted to be responsible for anyone. None of us did, Mark said. That's why we're the only ones who should be. He took one last look at the pyramid. For a heartbeat, just one, he thought he saw a shadow at its peak. Someone sitting, calm, patient, watching the horizon. Thank you, Mark whispered. The wind carried the words to the stone. Then his knees buckled. He fell gently, as if someone unseen eased him down. When he hit the sand, there were no glowing cracks, no unnatural light, just Marek, a tired old peasant who had finally run out of things to hold together. The woman closed his eyes. She stood alone, facing the pyramid, the weight of thousands of confused, frightened refugees at her back. All right then, she muttered. You sit on the door. I'll drag them as far away from it as I can. The wind picked up, swirling around the stones. For an instant, she thought she heard a familiar voice, wry, exhausted, almost amused. Hard work is the only God that answers. She snorted. Yeah, she said softly. You always hated easy choices. She turned to the crowd, lifted her voice, and lied. The God here is dead. The Pharaoh is gone. The desert has rejected their pact. If you stay, you starve or get swallowed when some fool tries to wake it again. If you follow me, you walk into a different kind of hard life. She let the words hang a moment. There will be no kings, no pyramids, only fields, stone, sweat, and sleep without voices in the dark. They stared at her. Then slowly, a few stepped forward. Then more. Then a tide. She led them away from the valley, their silhouettes shrinking against the dunes until the remade pyramid stood alone under a quiet sky. Night deepened. Stars wheeled overhead. Far below, in the buried chamber where chains of light met ancient stone, a single presence sat in endless vigil. No crown, no throne, no name carved on walls. Just a tired soul keeping watch over a door that would never get credit for staying closed. Every so often, something in the dark pressed against it. Curious, ambitious kings, hungry priests, desperate tyrants, all reaching with their minds for the old well of power. And every time, the same answer met them. No. No bargain, no whisper, no shortcut. Only the slow, grinding law of work, consequence in human will. Up on the surface, centuries later, historians would argue about why the old blood cults vanished so suddenly, why certain dynasties rotted faster than others, why some men who should have become monsters simply broke instead. They would write it off as politics, disease, economics, anything but a peasant who once chose to be a lock. Somewhere, under layers of stone and silence, a faint, weary humor flickered. The world above forgot the story. The door did not. And on certain nights, when fear presses too close and sleep comes slowly, the universe still remembers to send one quiet thought, not quite a prayer, not quite a memory, down into the dark. Thank you. The answer, as always, is the same. You're welcome. Now rest. Epilogue. The Last Shadow. Years passed. Then decades. Then centuries. The desert changed its face 1,000 times, dunes shifting, winds carving new shapes, kingdoms rising and falling like sandcastles beneath the growing tide. But the pyramid, his pyramid, never shifted again. No tourists came. No priests dared approach. Even conquerors avoided the valley without knowing why. The air around it held a quiet weight, the kind of silence that warns animals not to enter and convinces even the boldest wanderers to turn back. Deep beneath it, where the chains glowed faintly in the dark, he watched. Not awake, not asleep, somewhere in between, the state only a lock understands. He felt the world changing above him, stone roads becoming dirt again, empires turning to dust, maps redrawn, languages born and buried. And every so often, he felt the gentle press of another hunger testing the door. He answered the same way each time. A slow tightening of the golden chains, a whisper from deep within the earth. No. That was his life now, not glorious, not remembered, just necessary. But one night, far later, near the age when history begins to forget its own edges, something unusual happened. A presence brushed against the door. Not greedy, not violent, not looking for power. Curious. A child's mind, soft and frightened, reaching out in a dream. A little girl somewhere far above, crying quietly under her blanket, terrified of the dark. Her fear drifted downward, reaching the ancient feel like a trembling question. Is anything down there? For the first time in centuries, he answered differently. Not a warning, not a refusal. A whisper, barely a breath. No, there is nothing here. Sleep. The girl's dream softened, her breathing calmed. The darkness in her room faded into simple night again. He felt her drift into peaceful sleep, felt her fear dissolve like mist in morning light. The chains didn't waver, the seal didn't weaken, but the dark chamber warmed by a fraction, a tiny shift, almost meaningless, but real. He hadn't felt warmth in hundreds of years. And then, from somewhere deeper in the stone, he heard a sound he hadn't expected to hear again. A single, faint laugh. Soft, familiar. Merrick's voice. Still working, are you? He didn't answer. He didn't need to. The laugh faded, but it left something behind, a feeling he had long forgotten. He wasn't entirely alone. The world above would never know why its nightmares never evolved into something hungrier, why tyrants could reach for power but never quite cross a certain invisible threshold, why the deepest darkness always stopped short of waking. But he knew. He sat in that ageless chamber, guarding the seam between fear and catastrophe, between power and ruin. He breathed once, a slow, steady breath. Then he whispered the words Merrick always muttered when work was impossible, backbreaking, endless. Hard work is the only God that answers. The chains hummed in agreement. Above, a gentle wind swept across the desert. Below, silence settled like a blanket. In the world slept safely, never realizing that somewhere in the dark, a forgotten peasant kept watch, so monsters could never again learn the language of kings.